Did you know that one of the most prevalent and deadly cancers in the world could be developing inside you right now, often without you feeling anything until it's too late? Millions of people around the globe discover this cruel reality only when the disease has reached advanced stages, making treatment more challenging and the chances of recovery significantly lower. But the good news, the vital information that can change your destiny, is that you don't have to become another worrying statistic. There are signs, alarms that your body may be activating now, and that most people, especially as they pass their 40s or 50s, unfortunately ignore or mistake for common problems, missing the opportunity for an early diagnosis that can literally save their lives. In this essential content, we will detail the 7 crucial warning signs of intestinal cancer, clinically known as colorectal cancer, which affects the colon and rectum. The fundamental question that brought you here is, why is it so important that you understand about this type of tumor now? The answer is alarming and undeniable. This is not only the 3rd most commonly diagnosed cancer worldwide, it carries the weight of being the 2nd leading cause of cancer death globally, second only to lung cancer. It's a frightening fact. Colorectal cancer is responsible for the loss of hundreds of thousands of lives annually, impacting millions of families. Data from the World Health Organization reveals that this disease is the cause of more than 9% of all cancer deaths on the planet. Future projections from experts also indicate a concerning scenario, with estimates pointing to an almost 50% increase in the number of new cancer cases in 2040. Compared to 2020. This means that without a greater focus on prevention and early detection, millions more people will be diagnosed, and many, unfortunately, will lose their lives in the next 2 decades. I understand that these numbers can generate fear and apprehension. However, it is essential to believe that it is absolutely possible to protect yourself from these alarming statistics and safeguard your gut health. This video has been carefully prepared to be your guide, the practical tool that will help you on this path of prevention and early identification. Therefore, it is vital that you pay full attention from beginning to end, absorbing every piece of information shared. The correct information at the opportune moment has the power to be the difference between life and death, between a simple and a complex treatment. This material is structured in 2 essential parts for your complete understanding and, most importantly, for your active protection. In the first part, we will present clearly, directly, and without beating around the bush, the 7 main signs and symptoms of colorectal cancer that may unequivocally indicate that something is not working as it should in your digestive system. These are the signs that serve as a true red alert that should never be ignored. But the second part, that is even more powerful and potentially transformative. In it, we will address prevention, revealing practical measures that can drastically reduce your risk of developing this type of cancer. You will learn which simple habits to incorporate into your daily life and which powerful foods should be part of your diet to build a robust defense against this silent disease. And our conversation doesn't end there. During the explanation, we will also address the dreaded polyp, the small lesion that serves as the starting point for the vast majority of colorectal cancers. We will explain what you can do to prevent their formation and, a point of growing global concern, why cases of colorectal cancer are alarmingly increasing in younger people, below the age of 50, challenging the historical pattern of the disease. All this content has been developed by a specialized medical team with the aim of explaining everything about colorectal cancer in a simple, accessible way without complicated jargon. Stay with us until the end to ensure you don't miss any detail that can make all the difference for your health, your peace of mind, and that of your family, because information is, without a doubt, your greatest power against this disease. Before we continue, I need to reinforce a fundamental point. This video has a strictly informational and educational purpose. It does not replace, under any circumstances, the consultation and follow-up of a qualified health professional, whether a doctor, nutritionist, or other specialist. The information presented here aims to increase your awareness and guide you in seeking professional help when necessary. Therefore, before starting any significant change in your diet, exercise routine, treatment, or use of supplements, always seek the advice and guidance of a doctor. They will be able to assess your case individually and provide the safest and most effective recommendations for you. Taking care of your health is your greatest responsibility, and doing so with professional guidance is always the safest and most effective path. Now, let's get straight to the point that really matters. And that motivated you to watch this video. What are, after all, the 7 warning signs that you should know intimately and that may be indicating that something serious is happening with your gut, perhaps without you realizing it by mistaking them for simple problems? The first sign And one of the most indicative of problems in the final part of the intestine is the persistent feeling that the intestine has not been completely emptied after going to the bathroom. This condition is clinically known as tenesmus. Even after defecating, you may feel an uncomfortable and persistent urge, as if there is still stool to be eliminated, often leading to frustrated and frequent attempts to go to the bathroom. This feeling of incomplete emptying is particularly common when there is a tumor in the rectum or the final part of the colon, sigmoid. It occurs because the tumor, by occupying space and inflaming the region, can partially obstruct the passage, deceiving the brain with the false impression that there is pressure or stool to be expelled. This obstruction can also result in a change in the shape of the stool, making it thinner, flattened, like a ribbon or a pencil. This change in shape, if persistent for weeks, is an important warning sign that requires investigation. Another worrying sign, sometimes linked to this, partial obstruction or the way the tumor affects the body, is unexplained weight loss. The second symptom on our list, and one of the most alarming when it occurs without an obvious cause, is significant weight loss without you dieting, increasing exercise, or having another diagnosed illness that justifies the loss. What is very concerning is unintentional and noticeable weight loss, usually defined as 5 to 10% of body weight in 6 months, that happens without any apparent change in your lifestyle. Weight loss in cases of intestinal cancer can occur for several reasons. The tumor can interfere with nutrient absorption, consume the body's energy and resources to grow, release substances, cytokines, that decrease appetite and alter metabolism, or cause obstruction leading to nausea and difficulty eating. Weight loss without a clear explanation is a serious sign that requires immediate medical attention. This weight loss and partial obstruction often come with an uncomfortable feeling of bloating and gas buildup. The third symptom to observe carefully is persistent abdominal bloating or distension. The feeling or visible observation that your belly is swollen, which may come and go or be constant, can be a frequent symptom of intestinal cancer, especially as the tumor increases in size. The main reason for this is that the tumor may be partially or completely blocking the normal passage of stool and gas, causing a buildup before the point of obstruction, which leads to noticeable distension. In addition, the tumor can alter the natural movement of the intestine, making it difficult for food and liquids to pass, contributing to the feeling of bloating, gas, and even cramps. Do not ignore this sign, especially if it persists for weeks, worsens over time, or is associated with other symptoms on this list. Although bloating is common for other reasons, it is always more prudent to investigate if it is unusual, frequent, or intense. Associated with these abdominal discomforts and potential loss of blood or nutrients comes an exhaustion that goes far beyond the normal tiredness of everyday life. The fourth crucial symptom on our list is extreme fatigue and tiredness. It's not just being a little tired at the end of the day. It's a deep fatigue and overwhelming exhaustion that persists for a long period, weeks, months, without a clear cause, even if you rest adequately. In the context of intestinal cancer, this unexplained fatigue is often a classic sign of anemia. As mentioned, an intestinal tumor can bleed slowly, drop by drop, over time, leading to chronic iron deficiency, anemia. This insidious loss depletes iron reserves, essential for oxygen transport. It is absolutely crucial to investigate this unexplained anemia with blood tests, one of the main causes of anemia without another explanation in adults, and increasingly, in young people, is precisely intestinal cancer bleeding chronically. Furthermore, cancer cells consume a lot of the body's energy and nutrients to grow, contributing to chronic exhaustion. Under no circumstances ignore this persistent symptom. Without a clear cause, this fatigue and tiredness are often accompanied by that uncomfortable and persistent pain in the belly that doesn't seem to go away. The fifth symptom that requires your attention, especially if it is persistent, is pain in the belly or abdominal cramps. If you are feeling severe cramps that do not subside, pain that comes and goes persistently for weeks without an apparent cause, such as food poisoning or changes in diet, or even pain when defecating, especially in the lower abdomen, it is vital to seek medical evaluation. It is true that most abdominal pain has benign causes, but if the pain persists for weeks, becomes constant, frequent, or recurrent without a clear explanation, it is essential to consult a professional. Pain can be a symptom of intestinal cancer, especially if associated with other signs. The tumor may be irritating the intestinal wall, causing inflammation, or partially obstructing the passage, leading to gas buildup and pain. But what if the sign is even more evident, something you see directly, a trace that simply shouldn't be there every time you go to the bathroom? The sixth symptom that requires your total and immediate attention is the visible presence of blood in or with your stool. That's why looking at your stool before flushing is an important habit of self-observation. The appearance of the blood can vary depending on where the tumor is located. If it is on the right side of the colon, ascending, where the stool is still liquid, the bleeding may be slow and chronic, leading to anemia without visible blood or cause very dark, tarry stools. Melena due to the digestion of the blood. If the tumor is on the left side, descending, sigmoid, or in the rectum, where the stool is more solid, the bleeding tends to be bright red, visible in the toilet bowl or on the toilet paper. It is crucial, however, to know that other less serious conditions such as hemorrhoids or anal fissures also cause visible blood. But the essential point is, you cannot simply assume it's just something benign. If you notice blood in your stool persistently, recurrently, or without a clearly identifiable cause, such as an obvious painful fissure or clear inflamed hemorrhoid, it is imperative to see a doctor to investigate thoroughly. The tumor may bleed because its surface is injured, ulcerated, due to fragile blood vessels, or due to friction with the stool, and we arrive at the last symptom, the starting point of our list of crucial alerts, a noticeable and persistent change in your bowel habits. To understand this, it is crucial that you know your normal pattern. Each person has a different frequency and consistency of bowel movements. Some defecate daily, others several times a day, others only a few times a week. The important thing is to know what is normal for you. If you notice persistent and unexplained changes in this pattern that last for several weeks, more than 2 or 3, it's time to raise a red flag. Small changes can occur with age, routine, or diet, but if these changes are progressive, intensifying, becoming more frequent and noticeable over time, without a clear and temporary cause, it is absolutely essential to seek medical evaluation. Studies indicate that most of those diagnosed already had some persistent change in their bowel habits. These changes can be looser stools, unexplained diarrhea, harder stools, persistent constipation, or an unusual and lasting alternation between diarrhea and constipation. Persistence and lack of explanation are the keys to concern. It is crucial to highlight now a vital point that serves as a bridge to the next part of this content. Most people who develop colon or rectal cancer do not experience noticeable symptoms in the early stages, when the disease is easier to treat and the chances of recovery are higher. The symptoms we have listed tend to appear when the tumor has already reached a considerable size or caused some complication. Therefore, although the absence of these 7 symptoms is a momentary relief, it does not guarantee that you are completely safe. It is absolutely essential to be aware of the risk factors and, more importantly, to consider undergoing screening tests, which have the power to detect polyps, precancerous lesions, before they become cancer, or to identify cancer in a very early stage, even in the absence of symptoms. But why, after all, do these signs usually appear when the disease is already more advanced? And why, so worryingly, do we see more and more young people under the age of 50 being affected by this disease that was previously considered primarily a disease of the elderly? The truth behind the vast majority of intestinal cancer cases, over 90%, is that they originate from the development of polyps. These polyps are precancerous lesions, abnormal growths of cells that form in the inner lining of the colon or rectum. If certain cells undergo mutations and are exposed to risk factors, they can form polyps. Although most polyps are benign, a specific type, the adenoma, has a significant potential to transform into cancer over time, usually taking about 10 years to evolve from a small adenoma to an invasive cancer. This long window of time is your opportunity to act, to detect, and remove the lesion before it becomes a serious and difficult to treat problem. There are several factors that increase the risk of developing polyps and intestinal cancer. To understand why the incidence is increasing in young people, we need to look at these factors. First, age is a non-modifiable risk factor. The risk increases significantly as we age, as cells accumulate damage and mutations throughout life. Second, chronic inflammatory bowel diseases such as Crohn's disease and ulcerative colitis increase the risk due to prolonged chronic inflammation in the intestinal wall. Third, rare hereditary genetic syndromes such as Lynch syndrome and familial adenomatous polyposis drastically increase the risk, often at young ages, and require very early screening. A family history of intestinal cancer or adenomatous polyps in first-degree relatives, parents, siblings, children also elevates your risk, indicating the need to start screening earlier. But what about the risk factors you can control, which depend on your daily choices? Smoking is a factor that undoubtedly increases the risk of intestinal cancer. Excessive alcohol consumption also contributes to an increased risk. Sedentary lifestyle, lack of regular physical activity has a significant negative impact. Obesity and excessive overweight, especially the accumulation of fat in the abdominal region, are well-established risk factors for the development of colorectal cancer. And a crucial factor among the modifiable ones is diet. A diet low in fruits, vegetables, legumes, and whole grains, and rich in ultra-processed foods, processed meats, such as sausages, hot dogs, bacon, ham, and red meats, especially when consumed in excess and cooked at high temperatures, such as well-done grilled meats or barbecues. Why then is intestinal cancer increasing so much and affecting increasingly younger people? The most plausible and widely accepted explanation by the medical community lies in the significant and widespread increase of these modifiable risk factors in the younger population. An inadequate diet, increasingly based on ultra-processed products and low in fiber, the predominantly sedentary lifestyle, and the alarming increase in obesity and overweight rates in lower age groups are the main culprits. In addition, increased screening in some younger populations, although necessary, also contributes to the detection of cases that would previously go unnoticed until an older age. But the central and most important message you need to take away from this video is this: you have the power to act now to protect your gut health and significantly reduce your risk. The good news is that many of the preventive measures are simpler than you imagine and offer benefits that extend to your overall health, promoting longevity and well-being. Here are 7 practical and essential tips, widely supported by scientific evidence, to protect your gut health and drastically reduce the risk of colorectal cancer. The last one is, without a doubt, the most important and potentially life-saving. First tip, stay adequately hydrated. Drink plenty of pure water throughout the day. Good hydration is essential to ensure that the intestine functions correctly, helping in the formation of soft stools and preventing constipation. This helps to speed up intestinal transit, reducing the contact time of potentially harmful substances with the intestinal wall. Second tip, prioritize the consumption of fruits, vegetables, legumes, and whole grains. Include generous portions of these foods in all your meals. They are rich in fiber, vitamins, minerals, and antioxidants. Fiber is essential for intestinal health. It increases stool volume, facilitates evacuation, and serves as food for the beneficial bacteria of the intestinal flora, which in turn produce substances that protect the intestinal mucosa. Third tip, drastically reduce the consumption of red meats and completely avoid processed meats. Processed meats such as sausages, hot dogs, bacon, ham, and other cold cuts contain chemical additives such as nitrites and nitrates that can be converted into carcinogenic compounds in the intestine. Excessive consumption of red meats is also associated with an increased risk, especially when cooked at high temperatures, which can form carcinogenic compounds. Fourth tip, consider including low-fat dairy and its derivatives in your diet if you do not have intolerance or allergy. Several studies suggest that regular consumption of milk and other dairy products may offer some protection against intestinal cancer, possibly due to the calcium present, which can bind to bile acids and other substances in the intestine, neutralizing their potentially harmful effects. Fifth tip, practice physical activities regularly and combat sedentary lifestyle. Regular physical exercise improves the overall functioning of the intestine, helps regulate hormone levels, reduces systemic inflammation, and aids in controlling body weight. All these factors are important and contribute to the reduction of the risk of intestinal cancer. Sixth tip, completely avoid tobacco use and limit or avoid alcohol consumption. Both smoking and excessive alcohol consumption are sources of toxins that damage the body's cells, including those of the intestine, promote genetic mutations, and increase inflammation, significantly increasing the risk of developing various types of cancer, including colorectal cancer. And the seventh, and I reiterate, the most important of all tips, undergo regular screening exams even if you do not have any symptoms. The general recommendation is to start screening at age 50, performing at a minimum the fecal occult blood test annually. However, due to the increased incidence in lower age groups, many medical guidelines, especially in the United States and other countries, already recommend that screening for people with intermediate risk, the majority of the population, begin at age 45. If you are 45 years or older and fall into the intermediate risk category, or if you have other risk factors, it is crucial to talk to your doctor about having a colonoscopy. Why consider a colonoscopy at age 45? Because the incidence in young people is increasing, and colonoscopy has proven to be highly effective in early detection in this age group for individuals with high risk, strong family history of intestinal